Unique distinction of having the intersection displayed in the window there, so you can see how the intersection is set up with crosswalks and cars and all that. Next to that is the conflict monitor with a spare unit next to it, and below that is the vehicle detectors, the sensor loops, and then the load switches below to control the lights themselves.
Now explain to me the road detectors and the loops.
The loops are basically twisted wires that are embedded in the concrete or in the asphalt, and the electromagnetivity of the car will cause a relay to slip in these sensor units and create a call for the controller. So it'll detect the presence of the vehicle just by the electromagnetic displacement.
A good example of sensor loops in action is at freeway on-ramps. When a vehicle approaches and passes over the loops, a message tells the controller to change the signal from red to green. When there are no vehicles, the meters stay in either red or green mode. Even though this technology is used on the streets of numerous cities and towns, its greatest use comes on the roadways, making up what is known as the interstate highway system. The system was in part the vision of President Dwight David Eisenhower, who was fascinated by the Lincoln Highway and the German Autobahn as a young soldier. The Uniform Code of Traffic Control may dictate standardized guidelines for signals and signs, but the Association of State and Highway Officials control the interstates. Their most notable contribution is the numbering system. East and west highways are assigned even numbers, while north and south are assigned odd numbers. In addition to supporting automobile and truck traffic, the interstate highway system can be used by the military for troop movement. It can also be used by civil defense for evacuations in the event of nuclear attack. Even with the best design, Southern California's freeway system earns failing grades as the average driver spends an extra 93 hours a year in rush hour traffic. The Century Freeway, I-105, opened in February 1993, making it LA's last new freeway. No additional freeway construction is planned in the foreseeable future. Wilshire Boulevard was the pride of Los Angeles in the 20s. Its jewel was Bullock's department store that opened on September 26, 1929. Founder John G. Bullock's vision of a cathedral of commerce came alive in terracotta, copper, and steel. Architects John and Donald Parkinson were already famous for another LA landmark, City Hall. Her tower rose 10 stories above street level and was as haute couture as the latest spring line. Her inscription reads, "To build a business that will never know completion." Sadly, Bullock's completed its journey when it closed in April 1993. Today, the venerable old Bullock's Wilshire department store is home to the Southwestern Law Library. Every man has a hobby, and sometimes our pastimes test the patience of our significant others. What about you, Signalfan?
She actually is very supportive of it. When we met and going into it, she knew all about the hobby. I told her all about my interest and love for the various pieces, and she's grown to enjoy it with me. In fact, it is fun now when we go to intersections or driving down the street. She goes, "Is that an Econo light?" What? I bet that's a Kraus Heinz because it's got these fins on the top and the bottom. I'm like, you got it. So it's fun to hear some of the lingo come back, and she appreciates the hobby, and just loves that I love it. And keeps me out of trouble.
Signal technology had entered the digital age. The 3M Corporation, famous for Post-it notes, unveiled a traffic signal called the PV, or Programmed Visibility Signal.
With this signal, you can mask, inside you can mask out certain lanes and things like that so that it basically is focused on the lane that you want it to control. So it has the capability of being programmed that way. Now with the LED technology and the motorist confusion, I've noticed a lot of PV lights are coming down in favor of a standard red, yellow, and green arrow. Because originally the original left turn PV signal was a standard red ball with a yellow and green arrow. And the reason they went to the PV version was so that adjoining lanes wouldn't get confused by the indications. Well, now with red, yellow, and green arrows, people don't get confused. So why put up a big, heavy signal that has a meticulous focus on it when you can just use a standard head and it has the indications right on it? So I think its use will start diminishing. There are a few places where I think it'll remain strong, but I think its use is going to start waning. Open this way. And here's the lamp access. This one actually is an LED unit. These are what's retrofitting the lamps. I'll give you an example of what the old lamp looks like.
Oh wow.
This is 150 watt. This is like, I think it's like 20 watts. So quite a difference in power consumption.
Lots of energy savings.
Yes. And this is the part where they mask the lanes out. You can basically, this is like a frosted lens, and then on the back of this you put some special foil, 3M type foil, and that's heat resistant, and that masks out the lanes you don't want to see the light.
Okay.
It's another 3M PV. This one has all arrows, and with it a pedestrian walk don't walk, which weren't very common. I have not seen too many places where these were utilized.
The PV don't walks never were even less popular than the PV heads.
Yes, yeah. I only run across a couple that I remember in my lifetime, but for the most part, they were never really widely used. But the 3M PV was more prevalent.
This PV signal is so directionally focused that the camera picks up the green and yellow arrow, but not the red. This sometimes led drivers to assume bulbs have burnt out. Weight and a lack of part interchangeability was also a minus. Finally, cost became a factor with each unit at $1,000.
And that's it for this look at the Museum of Traffic Control and our look at motoring history around the nation and in Los Angeles in particular. One point I'd like to make about this particular hobby of collecting traffic light signals and signs is that everything Signalfan and the rest of the group collects are obtained legally. Everything has been picked up at antique stores, swap meets, and even contractors who have taken these signals down out of service. Mostly everything you saw was either damaged or obsolete. So remember, you can get into any hobby, but just make sure you're doing it above board. And that's it for this edition of Newswire LA. We'll see you back here next time. To follow everything Newswire LA, look us up on Facebook and Twitter at Newswire LA. I'm Chin Thomas Nancy saying good night, and we'll see you back here next time. Stay tuned for more news on this Westlake Signal station.